So freedom of expression issues surrounding that have actually been long-standing in Myanmar, certainly before the coup and since the coup in February 2021 as well. One of the key issues is with regards to the censorship that the military imposes on the country more broadly. Since the coup, this has been especially the case. The military has imposed censorship laws on the media and the press. Internet shutdowns have also impacted people's capacity to access, news and objective accounts of what's happening both in the country and especially from foreign media sources. And of course, what this breeds is an atmosphere of misinformation and false reports coming through, which the media, benefits the military regime's agenda. And also around the coup, the security forces specifically targeted journalists who have reported on the protests, and a lot of these journalists have been held in detention. And the military actually issued two objectives to the media with the coup. So they asked not to refer to its military takeover of the country as a coup in the first instance, and secondly, not to refer to the military regime, in fact, as a junta or a military regime. So you can see here how the military is, looking to contain language as a way of, containing the truth about what's happening. Moreover, what the military has also done is revoke the licenses of independent media companies, which means that a lot of independent presses have stopped operating, or if they do continue to operate, that comes with severe punitive consequences for them. And the strict censorship laws, which actually eased in the country in about 2012 when the country transitioned to a semi-civilian government, have much more gathered pace since the coup. So there's a lot of worrying issues there around freedom of expression, around people's capacity to express themselves, particularly around young people's capacity to have, I suppose, access to creative forms of expression, and all forms of creative arts. So, and the attacks on journalists and independent media have actually led to a very restrictive, media landscape where the government is able to control a lot of the information that goes out. So it's actually had a really, I suppose, frightening impact on especially journalists and writers. Currently, the Reporters Without Borders states that around 53 professional journalists are currently in detention, and that's the figures that we know about. That doesn't include amateur bloggers and writers, poets, etc., etc. And actually, since the February 21 coup, Myanmar is the world's second biggest jailer of journalists, second only to China. So that gives you a bit of a scale of the issues, in the country around freedom of expression. The poets are an especial target, and many young poets have been detained and tortured or killed during protests. The poets are targeted, I suppose, because they embody an anti-authoritarian spirit like no other art form in the country. So in Myanmar, politics and poetry really go hand in hand. PEN Myanmar, which is one of the local affiliates of PEN International, the impact that it's had on them is actually quite severe as well. So they've reported that 100% of their monthly magazines have stopped publishing, and there are barriers to book publishing as well, not only from the physical threat of the military, but also from the high prices of printing and paper. So what this means is that Burmese writers have very little access to income, and they struggle for their daily life. Writing on the internet is also sensitive due to a lot of the censorship that's going on, and publishers and writers have been detained en masse. So PEN Perth has done a number of things over the last few years. One of the things that we do is our advocacy for writers in prison as part of that program, and what that entails is letter writing campaigns, especially to local members of parliament here in Australia, in order to raise wider awareness around this. It's also sending out letters to the relevant Myanmar authorities here in Australia as well, to try to sort of advocate for as much as possible. The situation, of course, is really difficult, with the coup, and then the fact that coup will very likely be a long-standing civil issue. But that also, I suppose, points to the importance of why a spotlight on Myanmar is really important currently. The second thing that we've done is our Spotlight on Myanmar series, which is really a way for us to promote awareness about what's going on. These are a series of local events held at the Centre for Stories here. So that's to raise both awareness about what's going on, but also really to raise crucial funds for Burmese writers in country. One of our most recent events, we were able to raise enough money to send over to PEN Myanmar, which subsequently supported 5 writers there. So that, I suppose, immediate cash flow, writers' access to that is really important, in addition to, I suppose, the broader issues of freedom of expression at stake.